hush money trial, or the election interference trial, is a really big deal. What I was explaining before is that under New York law, if you engage in shady bookkeeping practices, essentially, you know, I don't know, you know, you take a vacation and you call it a business expense when it's, you know, just you and your family having fun or something like that. You can be prosecuted, and you know, routinely people are prosecuted for that, but it's only a misdemeanor. You know, I say only a misdemeanor. There are substantial, there can be huge fines, and there's substantial penalties associated with that misdemeanor, but it's basically just a misdemeanor. And that's you know, that's what Donald Trump did here. Is you know, what he's accused of is that David Pecker brought him this story that Stormy Daniels had come to. David Pecker was the publisher of the National Enquirer at the time, and Stormy Daniels had come to David Pecker and said, "Hey, you know, Donald Trump and I, you know, had sex, and you know, I'm perfectly willing to go on the record and talk about it if you pay me for the story." And David Pecker paid her $15,000, if I'm remembering correctly. Now, that might have been Karen McDougal, but I'm pretty sure it was Stormy Daniels. And then handed this off to Donald Trump and said, this woman is talking about, you know, going public with this. And he never published her story. And she wrote it up, by the way. She wrote up a story for the National Enquirer, and Pecker never published it. So when Trump learned about this, he had his fixer, Michael Cohen, reach out to Stephanie Clifford, you know, Stormy Daniels, and say, you know, we would like to pay you to sign a non-disclosure agreement to no longer ever again for the rest of your life, you know, world without end, amen, speak about the fact that you had sexual intercourse with Donald Trump while his wife was pregnant and while he was, well, in the years preceding his run for president. And she took the money. You know, she took the $160,000 from Donald Trump via Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen wrote her a check out of his own personal account so that it wouldn't reflect on Trump. And then Trump wrote Michael Cohen a check for $450,000, which was supposed to cover that $160,000, may have been to also cover the same amount of money for Karen McDougal, and also to cover the taxes that Michael Cohen was going to have to pay, because that money coming into Michael Cohen would be considered income. So Trump reimbursed him in a big way, in a way that, you know, even covered the taxes. And that's the tax crime that New York State is going after him on. Now, the allegation that Alvin Bragg is making is that the reason Donald Trump did this was all, keep in mind, this was all in the 3 or 4 weeks before the election of 2016. And the reason that Stormy Daniels first reached out to David Pecker, and the reason that Donald Trump was all freaked out about this, was because a couple of weeks before the election, the Access Hollywood tape came out, where Donald Trump said, you know, when you're a star, you can grab them by the, you know, what's it, and, you know, they let you do it. And that, you know, really hurt his reputation. I mean, the whole GOP, at that point, he was, you know, clearly the presidential nominee. They couldn't do anything about it, but you know, the whole party kind of took a deep breath and said, whoa. And a number of people, a number of Republicans just kind of backed away from him for a week or so. So he knew that if right after the Access Hollywood tape came out, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels were to come out and say, oh, and we slept with the guy, and he gave us $160,000. And now, you know, Stormy Daniels has embellished it even further with, yeah, and he's only 3 inches long, and, you know, et cetera. So that now becomes election interference. Now, election interference is a crime, both a federal crime and a state crime in New York State. As far as I know, Alvin Bragg is not actually charging Donald Trump with election interference. What he's charging him with is these bookkeeping crimes around the money that was used to pay off these women in furtherance of this felony crime of election interference. And so, you know, doing the bookkeeping crimes in order to facilitate an actual felony is a felony. So it's sort of like, conspiracy to commit a felony is a felony. So that's what's going on with that. He's facing 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Those 34 counts are not separate incidents. These are all, right now, these all have to do with Stormy Daniels. And what they are the, essentially the kind of the 34 stages in the process of paying off people and paying off Michael Cohen and having that money, cycled through the Trump organization, et cetera, et cetera. All the steps that he took basically to hide. He's accused of faking a series of invoices to Cohen, saying that they were for legal services instead of reimbursement for hush money. Trump is alleged to have issued a series of checks to Cohen, which he falsely denoted as payment for legal services. And then finally, prosecutors say that Trump then caused false entries about the payments to be created in the Trump Corporation's general ledger. So these are the crimes that he's being charged with. But they will be also talking about Karen McDougal as a way of telling the jury, this isn't just a one-off. This guy does this and did this in order to prevent people from knowing about it so that he could win the 2016 election. And prosecutors don't have to prove that Trump actually committed the election interference crime or any other crime. All they have to do is prove that when Trump falsified the business records, he did it, and this is a quote from the charging documents. He did it, quote, with intent to commit another crime or to aid or conceal the commission thereof. And I said Cohen was given $450. He was given $420,000. My error. Sorry about that. I always like to be right, accurate about things. The judge, by the way, this morning ruled that the Access Hollywood tape itself cannot be admitted into evidence. This was Trump had a substantial win this morning in this. Judge Merchan said that he believed that that tape itself would prejudice the jury against Donald Trump, would cause them to think poorly of him as a human being, in other words, independent of the crimes that he's charged with. And so he's going to allow the Access Hollywood tape to be read, the transcript of it to be read in open court. But he went along with Trump's lawyers and said that the tape itself cannot be played in court. Now, another one of the things that Trump is saying is that nobody else gets charged like this. This has never happened before. This, he went off on that at some length. The judge noted, Judge Merchan, this morning noted that the prosecution showed the district attorney's office had brought approximately 437 cases charging falsification of business records in just the previous decade. The Washington Post found that from 2014 to 2023, prosecutors brought first-degree business records falsifications 11,663 times across the state of New York. And in that same period, the Manhattan district attorney had 42 cases where the falsification charge was the top one, and the defendant, like Trump, was not charged with any additional, more serious crimes. And then just in 3 days, from April 8th to April 10th, Trump filed 3 separate emergency appeals. All of them, he wanted a change of venue. He wanted the judge to be removed. He wanted the trial to be delayed until after the election. All those got turned down. And that was last Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, he asked the appeal court again to delay the trial, and they turned that down. There's kind of an Al Capone feeling about this. Al Capone went down for tax evasion, not for the many murders that he did. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the prosecutors this morning asked the judge to hold Trump in contempt of court for violating the gag order. Over the weekend, Trump again attacked the judge and his daughter. And so that will probably be debated today. We haven't seen that yet. And the judge also ruled this morning that the jury cannot be told that when Trump had the affair with Karen McDougal, which apparently lasted over a year, and the one-night stand with Stormy Daniels, that the jury cannot be informed that Melania was pregnant at the moment.